Now, but John Pilger makes this point, and what point John Pilger is making is that the mining oligarch, in particular DBS, asked hard question, that if this is the attitude that P.W. Botha was taking, on what basis must they continue not to negotiate direct with the ANC? And Sam, he says those negotiations started in Harare, they ended up in Mill Park in London. He explained who bought what cigarette, what whiskey was being drank in those negotiations. And the bottom line, he insinuates strongly that a deal was done, that the South African people, their right will end up with voting after 5 years, but the economy will remain dominated by white monopoly capital and white population in South Africa. And this is what we have experienced in the true sense of the word. When we call for fundamental change, and it's not change that the world should be shaken about it. For instance, Numsa have been demanding a very simple thing: implement fully the Freedom Charter. We believe that if you were to implement fully the Freedom Charter, this becomes the most direct route to socialism, to basically democratization of the country, to ensure equal access, to ensure non-racialism, to ensure democratization of the country. This is the only way in which you can change power relations. It is our firm view that the democratic breakthrough and the political power we secured in 1994 must be used to take ownership of the national wealth of the country. It is our view that we need to ensure that the Freedom Charter is implemented. Its policy that says mineral wealth, banks and monopoly industries must be transferred to the ownership of the people. Because we believe that that's the only way you can change power relations in society. What will make people to be racist if we all have got equal access to the economy, our children? And I mean, it's very easy. You can take education. Those who live a middle-class life, their children, they have got iPads, they have got access to today's latest technology, they have got confidence, and when they go to school, they teach teachers before teachers teach them. But those who come from the working class, who have got no access to the economy, what do? They bring poverty to school, helplessness, and it's like that. And this is the life of Black and African people. For those who got access, they have got everything. They're dying of overeating, they have got better life. And the bulk majority of South African people are basically in squalor, in poverty, is inferior roads, is inferior infrastructure in terms of public hospitals, inferior everything. The results for education for children in the township are poor. We know who basically take the good result. They come from the middle class and the white population that has got the access to the economy. This is what Numsa have championed since 2008, since I was privileged to be the General Secretary of Numsa. In our 9th Congress in Durban, we critiqued the African National Congress. We were clear that, no man, there is a problem. We accept that the ANC is a multi-class organization. The ANC says it is biased towards the working class. The ANC, in its policy, it believes that the working class is the motive force. And remember, we're all trained in the theory. He knows what is the motive force. Motive force meaning that there's nothing that can happen without you. And we began to ask hard questions. On what basis, if the working class is the motive force, is the engine of the revolution, and it put the ANC into power after 5 years, but the beneficiaries of this revolution continues to be the exploiters of the working class, those who take the wealth? And from our own understanding, the contradiction between labor and capital is a fundamental contradiction. We firmly believe that that contradiction can't be resolved by a prayer. We believe that that contradiction can only be resolved by a revolution. And a revolution to us means fundamental change. And in the context of the alliance, this has been defined as NDR, National Democratic Revolution. And we're asking, what is revolutionary about this National Democratic Revolution if it does not address the property question? And that's where we lost a relationship with our vanguard party, which is the South African Communist Party. Strangely, I mean, all communists all over the world, I'm not sure here in Canada, but all communists, the first thing that they get interested on is to address the property question. And we had this strange phenomenon in South Africa where the Communist Party, our own vanguard party of the working class, which we have been having that vanguard in the trenches for years, it was that very same vanguard that together with them, when we were battling in the street to defeat what we defined then as 1996 class project, which is neoliberal policies to a point of removing Beki, it was a party that was with us on the trenches. It used to define those who occupy that center of power as people who are busy with policy politics. But the difference between Beki and our Honorable President Zuma, instead of keeping communists away from parliament, immediately Zuma took over power. He actually said, come, let's govern. And the vanguard, instead of being with us on the trenches, have basically, if there's one thing they do very good today, is to launch an offensive, is to attack our own working class political confidence. I mean, this is done with passion. And they will characterize us as populist, as demagogues, as anti-majoritarian, to a point of deploying propaganda with absolutely no truth, that we work with imperialist forces. Because we must accept that the ANC is driving a revolutionary program. We must lie and say the ANC is driving a revolutionary program, when in fact, South Africa have surpassed Brazil in terms of inequality. We have become #1 in terms of inequality today. Our people are being ravaged by poverty, unemployment, and inequalities. And this has become strange. And I think we could say confidently that it doesn't look like there's a turning back. I mean, we were clear that the party was not going to join us in this particular trench. I mean, in the ANC policy conference, still swelling the ranks, we succeeded to secure in all commissions a resolution that says all strategic minerals will be nationalized. From commissions to the plenary where the report was to be given, the leadership manipulated those resolutions. They added some condition. It can only happen if it is appropriate to do so, if there is a balance of evidence. What is democracy? And that's what happened. In Mangaung, in conference, we fought to try and remove those conditions. They removed everything outside the commission. And the next move was to attack COSATU's hegemony. And the front that is attacking that hegemony of COSATU is, you will find the ANC's got its own footprints. The Communist Party is directly involved because COSATU, under the leadership of Zwelinze Mavavi, has been for years the champion of working class struggle, taking working class to the street, continuing to attack this neoliberal agenda that it must be dropped. The next thing was basically a situation where those who are co-opted into the party central committee and those who serve in the ANC NEC, who are leaders of different affiliates, they have actually decided to wage war with those forces who want full implementation of the Freedom Charter, with those forces who want radical change. In 2004, the ANC promised that it will, by 2014, contract with the people. Vision 2014. Like now there is another vision to 2030. It promised that it will have unemployment, it will have poverty, it will have inequalities. I'm not reading you the statistics. I'm sure we can give you the input. I'm summarizing so that we could have an interactive engagement. You can see what has happened since 1994. First, you would appreciate that the rate of exploitation has been on the rise. The rate of profit for the bosses, South African companies have been very profitable. There has been a colonial wage, which is obviously since 1910, which was a union between English and Afrikaner capital, where black people, Africans in particular, by design, were not allowed to access the economy. The Land Act of 1913, its mission was to push people into unproductive land in the reserves, in Transkei, Ciskei, Venda, Kwakwa, Kwangwane, Lebowa, all this. These were homelands where people were thrown by force, this being buttressed by various laws. I mean, there was a Kornoff bill where if they find that this land is productive, they take people by force and throw them into areas with that are completely not productive. But in the process, they were proletarizing them. They were forcing them to, if you have your land, you're kicked out of your land, you lost your stock and everything else. You're forced to go and look for a job in the mine, and we all know what has happened in South Africa in terms of migrant labor. So we can confirm that for many centuries now, for 20 years, in South Africa, the South African capitalism have grown, have thrived at the back of super exploitation of black and African labor as an accumulation strategy for capital, as a form of saying, come here and invest. What does the Freedom Charter say about this? The Freedom Charter says when the ANC is in power, it will implement the Freedom Charter, and the Freedom Charter calls for introduction of the national minimum wage. The Freedom Charter calls for banning of contract labor and the tort system. And the contract labor here, you will call it precarious work. When we say to the ANC must ban labor brokers, which is precarious work, no, they are not ready to do that. They will regulate it. The new NDP that they have adopted, which is taking us to 2030 now, is a worst form of right-wing program. Because first, it keeps intact white monopoly capital, ownership of the economy. It does not tamper with that. Secondly, it seeks to hide all the failures of the macroeconomic framework. It seeks to conceal them so that the working class is sent to sleep. And they are using now very nice English to talk about privatization. It's no longer called privatization. They call it concessioning of the rail. That's privatization. They talk about unbundling of Eskom, which means the role of the state is being rolled back of the economy. We know this. I mean, this has been the theory of globalization, that government does not have business, and business let's allow the market. Now it's PPPs, private partnership. That's what is being introduced. Organized labor that carries the burden of the bulk majority who don't have a plate of food, which is why workers have become so militant. We have got militant strikes in South Africa today. Why? Because workers carry the burden of 5 to 6 families who don't have a plate of food. And there are service delivery protests, I mean, every day across the length and breadth of the country, because poverty, unemployment, and inequalities is grinding our own people. And what does the right-wing political party called DA says? DA says we are in this situation of unemployment, poverty, and inequalities because the insiders, which is organized labor in the factories, have become so spoiled with demanding a lot. There are people outside, when they see the mass of the unemployed in South Africa, they see an army of the people which must be further exploited. They want to use the race to the bottom. They want super exploitation to continue. As we speak, we've got about 26 million people who are in abject poverty. 25 million of those people are black and African. And I mean, with absolutely no plate of food on their table. This is the reason why Numsa took a firm decision that, yes, in the 9th Congress, we thought that if the ANC would have acted on these things that I'm mentioning, there could be reason why we should campaign. And as a leadership, when we saw this happening, including privatizing public roads, taking a public road in the form of e-tolls into private hands. We said, no, enough is enough. We must go to a special Congress to seek a mandate from our members. It must be our members who say, look, we have voted for the ANC for the rest of our lives. We will repeat to vote for it now, even as we see that it is launching an offensive against us. It's not an easy task to do that, because all of us, we know no other organization that has been in the trenches. It has been the African National Congress, it has been the South African Communist Party. So we had to break new ground in the conference, and workers basically decided in that special Congress that Numsa will not campaign for the African National Congress. In liberation movement, we voted for the rest of the period of the liberation movement. We said we're leaving it that to workers to decide. That's what the Congress said. Secondly, the Congress said we should launch a united front that will champion struggles of the working class, to defend the gains of the working class, to improve their own condition, to defend the current capability of manufacturing, and fight for industrialization of our country, firmly because we have got minerals in that country that can be utilized, that can be beneficiated. But parallel to that, a resolution was taken that Numsa must research, we must check what has happened in revolutionary project in Latin America, in Brazil. Let's check what has happened. What has been the nature and form of political parties? Because we have realized that now is the time that the working class must organize itself as a class for itself. And in Numsa, we firmly believe in this. We call on workers to set aside all their prejudice, to unite. But at the center of that, we're saying our struggle is about to end economic exploitation. We firmly believe that that can only happen under the leadership of the working class. And we believe that the working class is the only class capable of carrying the revolution to its logical conclusion. But not just any working class. It's not anointed by God that the working class will do that. Which is why we firmly believe that the working class needs its own political party that must work with the working class to raise its levels of consciousness to that of the dictatorship of the class that exploit the working class. You will appreciate that today in our case, we are alone. We must now play the role of a trade union movement. At the same time, we must vanguard ourselves. We must constitute ourselves at the same time as the advanced detachment of the working class in fighting against neoliberalism. And we said, look, we will then go for a formation of launching a movement for socialism whose main target and focus will be to make sure that the Freedom Charter is being implemented. Well, you can think about that. That makes us, there are many people, the working class is in the majority. Remember I said the working class is the only class capable of carrying the revolution to its logical conclusion. And that's not anointed by God. It's because the working class is numerical, Leo, in numbers. It is the most exploited. If it has got an advanced detachment of the working class that is loyal to the cause of the working class, that teaches the working class that the reason why you are poor, you are exploited, is because they rob you broad daylight. They don't rob at night. They have a rule of law. Actually, it is legal that those who own means of production, if you work 7.5 hours in a day, within 1.5 hours, what is due to you is paid. The rest of other hours, you give it free to the bosses. But everything else that has got value, this iPad, this table, this mic, is produced by a worker. And you can conclude that the contradiction in society is about who own and control the social surplus that the working class produce. That's what the contradiction is all about. And I'm raising the issue that our own members, the rest of rank and file of the working class, identify with the political posture that Numsa is taking. And I'm saying, with the working class, we're in numbers, people who see the need to break new ground as Numsa have done. But at the same time, our enemies have basically doubled. And I mean, we are being now characterized as enemies of the revolution. We have been bought by everything else you can think about. We're failing to see the moment. We're supposed to be defending the revolution. How can we do this? How can we allow DA, for instance, which is the Democratic Right-Wing Alliance, to win? Because if Numsa takes this political posture, we're allowing. But what is the difference between the ANC and DA today? That's the question. Because we've done a very simple thing. We took the NDP and took the policies of DA. They are comparing, it's just a different English. What the NDP that the ANC is championing and what DA is suggesting, exactly the same policy. Why should we basically be prisoners of ourselves? And we are very firm that people, the working class doesn't eat symbols. The working class want to share in that social surplus that it produces. And we're of the view that unless the working class organizes itself as a force that must conquer for itself, there's no other class that will act in the interest of the working class. So we took those groundbreaking resolutions, including about the fact that COSATU on its crisis, it must call a special Congress. The custodian of the federation, which is members, must be allowed to basically resolve the challenges that confront the federation. Can I shut up?
Well, I think there are probably a lot of questions, so we can certainly...
Yes, I'll take questions.
You're game for that.
One thing I didn't do has been to give you statistics about the extent which imperialism have been on the rise. Remember, our own movement defined itself as being in the left, as it's anti-imperialism and everything else. If you were to look at the statistics, it's frightening, it's shocking. Thank you very much.